Hi, I'm Peter Capaldi. I play the Doctor, and you're watching EMS Productions.
Hello everybody, and welcome along to today's video where I'm going to be looking back and reviewing this week's episode of Doctor Who. Knock knock. So we come to this week's episode of Doctor Who, episode 4 of the series, focusing on a sort of spooky haunted house kind of horror story, was kind of the idea behind it, I would say. Written by, of course, Mike Bartlett, who wrote the fantastic Dr. Foster TV programme the last year before, and certainly is very much a critically acclaimed writer, so it was interesting to see his take on Doctor Who, particularly as he was also a big fan of the show I was reading. So it was nice to see him have a go at that show. And, well, I think it came out mixed, I would say. I will say now that there's this type of story, a sort of horror, spooky, haunted house kind of story, isn't quite my thing, personally. I'm not a great fan of horror films or anything like that, haunted houses or anything. Just don't really do too much for me. So maybe for someone who loves that sort of genre, it might have been a little bit of a better episode for them. But for me personally, it just isn't a sort of idea or a concept that I'm that interested in. Well, I guess I'll start with some of the more positive points of the episode, and certainly one of them was David Suchet's performance in this episode, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Playing this mysterious landlord throughout, he certainly really brought that sort of mystery to the character, a very sort of weird, odd person that he portrayed absolutely brilliantly, and then the sort of development into that really kind of sad child towards the end of it, and just kind of his performance I thought was really, really, really good. One of the best sort of performances from a guest actor in a while, certainly. Just really took the character and made it his own sort of thing. You really did just put that performance and really made you buy into that as a character. And this just sort of creepy, mysterious talking, the way he talks, that sort of random knock on wood thing that he did as well was all just very creepy and mysterious. And I thought that David Suchet did an absolutely brilliant job pulling that off and keeping that sort of creepy, mysterious element around the landlord going. I also thought it was a very brilliant setting for the episode in this massive haunted house kind of style. A little bit sort of stereotypical, but it was a really impressive location, and certainly in some of the earlier scenes, the very tense scenes where you get around and knocking on the wall and the creepy sort of squeaking floors and little wriggles in the wall kind of thing, that was all done really, really well, both in the sort of the filming of it and the acting, the sound effects, everything, particularly on the binaural edition, the sort of extra surround sound version. That really was portrayed very well with the sort of mysterious knocking from all over the place and everything. Just the way that was filmed and sort of produced overall really gave a very good and creepy feel to those early scenes, even if it didn't quite continue on through to the end. Now I'm going to have to address some of the sort of, I guess, issues I have with the episode a little bit, and I mean, one of the main things is Bill, because she just seemed a bit out of character in this episode. I mean, the first 3 episodes she'd been sort of in awe of the Doctor, really happy and friendly with him and everything, wanted to always be with him and sort of asking questions all the time. And it started off like that in this episode, but then as soon as she sort of gets all her stuff transported to the outside the house, how has no companion ever thought to do that before? If they're moving house, why wouldn't they think, let's use a TARDIS for it? I love how that was just a brilliant idea, I thought, to introduce that they'd never used before, bizarrely. But then the fact that they had to just use the generic embarrassed by your old person sort of trope that they had in this episode, which was just a bit sort of lazy because there was nothing to suggest that Bill had that attitude towards the Doctor at all. She always sort of looked up to the Doctor and viewed him as a real sort of a teachery sort of figure. And then suddenly she's embarrassed by him for no apparent reason, and nothing before that suggested that, and just using a generic trope to add a bit of comedy by making her seem embarrassed by the Doctor when she sort of moves in with all her friends and stuff. It just felt very out of place with her character so far, when she's been so friendly and sort of looking up to the Doctor, then suddenly be embarrassed by him in front of her friends, who all know who he is anyway. It just seemed very odd that it was written like that, and it sort of felt just didn't quite work for me personally. It didn't feel quite right with Bill's character. Now, of course, as usual, the Doctor, Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, was on form. When is he ever not on form? That has to be said. Another brilliant performance of him sort of hiding around this haunted house and sort of snooping around trying to find out what's going on. I love the scene where he tries to get down with the kids, with taking Bill's phone and playing Little Mix off it and everything. And it was just an absolutely brilliant sort of comedic scene that he played so perfectly there, which I absolutely loved. But overall, he didn't get a huge amount to do, really. He sort of wandered around like all the other kids kind of thing, because that was the issue. He had like 8 main characters to try and spread scenes around a bit. So it's always a challenge to try and give everybody lots of screen time when you've got 8 or 9 main characters. But obviously you've got the Doctor to give his nice little sort of info dump, I think he called it, at the end of the episode, where explaining exactly trying to work out what's going on and kind of gradually working it out exactly what has happened there. So I thought it was another good performance from him. He didn't really have a huge amount to kind of do or to work with in this episode, but certainly what he did, he was brilliant as usual. Now, one of the other things that was a little bit more mixed, I guess you would say, is some of the performances from the guest actors and actresses who are playing all of Bill's sort of housemates. Most of the time they were okay, but there were a few sort of iffy lines and everything. One bit which I thought just felt like a bit poorly edited or a bit out of place was when the Doctor was and Harry were being threatened by the landlord just before Harry gets all eaten up. He just seemed to be randomly jumping in with lines that didn't really seem to fit in with the plot at all and just sounded really bad, frankly. It just sort of jarred on me the first time I watched it a bit that the lines just didn't seem to fit properly, so I'm not sure quite what happened there. Whether it was just the editing went a bit wrong or something, but yeah, it just felt like a little bit of a... it just didn't feel quite right, and just some of the performances, some of the moments, some of the lines just weren't... They were generally written okay, but some of the performances I just thought weren't fantastic, really. I mean, you had the very sort of generic guy fancies girl kind of thing in a really bad way. I mean, clearly you had to kind of just pick the stereotypical characters out of each of them. So you've got the sort of nerdy girl, you've got the slightly more cool girl, you've got the tall, big guy that fancies the girl and all this kind of thing. Lots of just sort of generic character types, simply because you've got a huge amount of characters to introduce and try and make people care about them in no time at all. So I can understand why they did it, but often it does then fall let down and doesn't give them quite as much to work with as they just end up being stereotyped into that sort of a character. So yeah, I felt that was a little bit of a letdown at times with just some of the performances and some of the sort of characters weren't fantastic, really. And now I'm going to have to address the ending, which I thought wasn't the greatest we've had in Doctor Who, personally. I mean, one of the issues with this series so far, I think, is the repetition that we've had in the villain, the alien, the sort of monster of it all, where pretty much through all 4 episodes, the monster's not really been bad or evil or something, he's just sort of misunderstood or all this kind of thing. So you had the pilot in the first episode who was just looking for a passenger, wasn't really trying to kill people or anything like that. The emoji bots who weren't actually evil, they just thought they were doing good by killing people, basically. Episode 3, you had the monster under the Thames who wasn't evil at all. And it's the same in this episode, where the landlord isn't really evil, or the lice isn't evil at all, it's just trying to kind of save his mother, who we thought was daughter but mother. So it's just getting a bit repetitious to have the same sort of alien that's not really bad kind of thing throughout the series, and it looks like they might continue again with zombies as well, that kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. But I was just a little bit disappointed that it turned up to the same sort of thing over again, and there was a lot of sort of I guess plot kind of shortcuts. Sort of why was it every 20 years? Was there any particular significant reason why? How did no one ever notice the last 3 times it's happened? When some police officers come to investigate when 6 people suddenly disappeared and been killed, wouldn't somebody notice? So there were just sort of little plot shortcuts, I guess, things that weren't quite addressed so well throughout the episode. And then, of course, pressing the reset button yet again. So just because they did, they suddenly were able to bring back all the kids back to life out of all the lice and stuff and then pull them out of it, so no one died, which is basically the same as previous episodes. Episode 2, hit the reset button and everything was resolved there. So it's just, again, a bit of repetition for the start of this series, which, as much as it's not that bad of a plot idea per se, when you keep repeating it, it just becomes bad, frankly, because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So that was a little bit disappointing, and it kind of takes away any sort of peril or worry in the characters when they're suddenly all just fine at the end of the episode. They didn't kill off any of them, which just seemed a bit poor. And so overall, I just felt the conclusion of the episode sort of let it down a little bit. After you built up all the tension and the spooky sort of haunted house style with the people disappearing and being killed as well, to then suddenly kind of just reset everything. Yes, you blew up the house, but you've reset everything and it's all back to normal. It just didn't quite work for me, I felt. And then you get the other plot holes of what's happened to all Bill's stuff. It was all inside her house and that's been all blown up, so she lost all her childhood photos and memories and everything. Is that all gone? Or what? Yeah, there was a lot of shortcuts in the plot that I thought there, which were just, when you dig into it a little bit deeper, just find it a little bit irritating. And well, we end this episode with another scene back at the vault again, where we get the mysterious character who's inside the vault playing the piano away, because apparently they're not supposed to put a piano in there now, and it's suddenly increasing all the intrigue around it all. I won't go into too much detail on what's going on with the vault now, but check out my video from Sunday, where I basically let you know who I think's in the vault and did it all a bit more in detail. So go check that out for all my thoughts on the vault, because otherwise I'll just be repeating myself in case you've already seen it as well. But if you haven't, go check that video out. And so there we go, guys. That's about it for my review of this episode. I think there's not too much more to say about it. Overall, it was another solid episode, but it was nothing spectacular yet. I don't feel in these first 4 episodes we've yet had an absolute sort of classic episode. They've all been solid and good, but nothing absolutely special. It's sort of been a consistent start, if a little bit unspectacular, I would say. And so far I'd probably rate Thin Ice as my favourite episode, followed by the pilot, then this, then Smile, as my sort of ranking so far. As I say, they've all been good episodes, but nothing special yet. Certainly, I'm optimistic that this week's episode just might beat that. But there we go, guys. That'll be for another video. So I'll wrap this one up now, guys. Do let me know in the comments below if you've got anything to say about this episode, what your thoughts were. I should just mention that I did watch the binaural audio version of this episode, this whole surround sound thing, and it was good. It was alright. It did just feel like they kind of whacked up the surround sound a little bit more, just put the sound effects slightly louder and moved them to the side a little bit. So it didn't have too much of an impact on me. Maybe if you're watching it first time, it would be a little bit more spooky because you do get a knock over there kind of thing and another knock over there. That was quite effective, but overall it didn't do make a huge amount of difference for me, to be quite honest. It was a nice one-off thing, but I wasn't too fussed either way. So there we go, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another video. Goodbye.